I want to welcome you to the Ricky Matthews Show, where we celebrate every single day the amazing people who are working in the trenches to make Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Let me also welcome our listeners from Jackson and the Mississippi Delta. It's Thursdays on my show, and it's an expanded show on this day. We'll be adding more markets and more days as we go forward. And I want to first just say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Some of you are in your cars going between families. Some of you are having to drive out of town. I hope that you're safe, but I mostly just want to say this is a wonderful day on the calendar where we get a chance to kind of freeze frame it for a second and live in the moment and thank God for what we have. This is a very, very special day. And most of my listeners know this. My mother passed away a couple of months ago, and so this is kind of the first holiday without her. She lived a wonderful life, but when you lose a loved one near a day like today, it gives you a little bit more, I don't know, motivation to thank God for the people who are around you. And I'm thrilled to have a wonderful wife, and my wife Ann, and 3 wonderful kids and 4 grandkids and a lot of wonderful friends. A lot of them I'll be spending time with up at the hunting camp over a long weekend. So, there's a lot to be thankful for. Health and prosperity for our state and the people in our state is something that I certainly pray for. And I really look forward to this next conversation. It's with my friend, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann, and we're just going to reflect a little bit. We will talk a little bit about what's to come in the future from a legislative point of view, but we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how fortunate we are to live in Mississippi. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, we're doing great. We're just down here at the Capitol. It's kind of quiet today. Everybody's drifting away for Thanksgiving, and we told all of our people to go home and be with their families and cook their turkeys and do all their hunting and traveling that some of them have to travel, some down to the coast, some all the way to North Mississippi. So we kind of let them ease out a little early.
Well, you've got some of your team there with you, and it's great to see you working on the. We're actually recording this the day before Thanksgiving, so that we actually do a show on Thanksgiving. But it's great to see you there working. You got a lot of goals for yourself as you go forward. But I think probably the best place to start is just simply say congratulations, because after a sort of a tough primary situation that you and I previously talked about, you won resoundingly in the general election, and I congratulate you for that.
Thank you. It's kind of a mixed bag, really, Ricky. First is, you're always kind of humbled. 480,000 people trusted you with their tax dollars and their kids to be educated and the roads to be built and all those other things. And that's very humbling. And then the second thing you worry about is can I do as good a job as those people deserve for me to do? So that's why I'm down here working today. There's a little bit of fear factor in there. Oh my goodness, now you really got to perform.
Well, listen, you and I've known you for a long time. I got to know you when I was the publisher of the Sun Herald. And it was great to be able to reconnect with you in retirement as I do this show, and that's been terrific. What I know about you is that, what you see is what you get. You're not someone who fakes your love of the state. You're not someone who fakes your care about people who vote for you and who didn't vote for you. You. In fact, I would say that for people who didn't vote for Delbert Hosemann, he believes that one of his clarion calls is to convince you why you probably should have. And that drives you, doesn't it?
No, the only thing I ever ask if somebody calls is, did you vote? I never ask them who they voted for or what party or I don't care about any of that. But I do care about voting, and as somebody voted, then I'll represent you. If you didn't vote, my next question is, why didn't you vote before they start on theirs? But you're right. We represent all of Mississippi, and we really, all the vote rises, if everybody rises. So our commitment to things like education that you're seeing, we'll talk about some of that. We've got some new policies coming out on that this year.
Yeah.
The other matters, like our Outdoor Stewardship Fund. I just got a report from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks about where we are on all of our construction projects, and I anticipate we will fund them as well as our Outdoor Stewardship Fund next year. So there's a lot of things I think that we do that touch people, from outdoors that you're very familiar with, down to whether or not we've got a road that's going to be completed next year coming out of Gaucher up to the 4-lane, and we just got a lot of things that are going on positive in Mississippi, and when I look at our new reading scores and I look at the things that were done really by people before me, we're really headed in the right direction, Ricky. I would tell you.
Yeah, I agree. You look at the education situation, that bill that was passed 10 years ago to be sure that kids who, before they go into 4th grade, are reading at their proper level. And that shows you that the legislature can pass innovative bills that not only address Mississippi's education challenges, but at the same time become sort of a best practice for the entire United States. I mean, it's a real success story, isn't it?
It is, and you'll see 3 other things coming this year. The first, the coast has already jumped into over the last few years, which is semester schools. Basically, some people call it year-round, but it's not really year-round, but you get a fall break for 3 weeks, a spring break for 3 weeks, and about 5 weeks off in the summer. And this allows our young people during those 3-week break periods to be educated, catch up if they were falling behind, or take something special, or just take time off with their parents. And a lot of families are taking fall vacations now, which they've never done before. We raised our teachers' salaries. You know that. We've raised them twice since we started. We also have now almost 6,000 kids in pre-K, public pre-K, where we're starting with these kids 5 years old and whatever, and giving them access if they want. And there's still, Head Start and parochial schools like we have on the coast and Catholic schools and whatnot. But we also have the others that were kind of falling through the crack or not there. They're in public pre-K now, and that's been very successful. Then we have got career coaches, Ricky. We never had those before. We started them 2 years ago, and we started with 80, then we went to 140, and this year we'll probably go to close to 200. Every school will have someone. Many of these are former teachers, by the way. We pay for them out of the state. They don't come out of the local budget. And they sit down with these kids that are juniors and seniors and have them do an economic career path. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a welder with Ingalls, or do you want to shoot rockets with Stens? What do you want to do? You want to be a doctor or nurses or what? And then they line out their program for them. This has been unbelievably successful. Many of these kids kind of have hit a bumper, Ricky, when they graduate from high school. Like, what are you going to do? Well, I really don't know. Well, we got people sitting down with them. What do you like to do? Are you more of a hands person? Or you like more be a teacher? Or, and they go through this. And I met with 5 of them in New Albany the other day, and they have become, these teachers now in the second, it'll be their 3rd year, have become more like an aunt or an uncle at Thanksgiving. The kids call them back. Hey, I got my grades at the community college. I'm going to be a nurse, and so they're kind of almost like a family guidance person for their education economic opportunities. And to supplement that further, we're going to do last dollar tuition credit for community colleges. So if you look at this like you do, we're starting earlier, 3rd grade reading gate before I got here, career coaches, now community college for free. That's where we're going. And so our whole structure is to have our young people, our children, our grandchildren, be able to have a larger economic life and hopefully stay in Mississippi. We want them here.
One of the beautiful things about what the focus on economic development has created is an understanding of the importance of the partnership that exists between all schools, and especially senior level high school, say the 10th, 11th, 12th of high school, and junior college system. And now, in my recent conversation with Joe Paul, he's having these kinds of conversations around the blue economy, et cetera. But the reality is that most kids, a lot of kids, let's don't say most kids, don't necessarily need to go to a 4-year university.
No.
I love the fact that more than 50% of the students students who are at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College today, over 50%, are in non-traditional education. But when you think about non-traditional education, we're not talking about menial jobs here. We're talking about learning, for example, sophisticated diesel mechanic work that pays over $100,000 a year after the training course is done. So these are really, really good jobs. What's happening is you're getting companies that are being strategically focused about what educational levels they need, and they're connecting with Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College in that case and deciding here's the kind of training that we need. Hey, listen, what we'll do when we come back on the other side, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that part, and then we're going to take a step back for just a minute and just talk about what does Thanksgiving mean to you, and what an important time of the year this is, an opportunity to reflect, especially after the election cycle. We're going to continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann, after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show on this expanded Thursday with the Gulf Coast and the Jackson and Delta markets. I want to, as I said at the beginning of the show, wish everybody a very, very happy Thanksgiving. What a wonderful time of the year it is. I was on the show with Paul Gallo last week or the week before, and he said something about how fast a week had gone by. And I said, the week, the year, where did this year go? As we're continuing our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, and we're just going to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving. But you know what, Delbert, as you travel across this state, especially during an election season, and I don't think I remember, and maybe this is what you do every time. Maybe it's social media and how it enables us to sort of go on the campaign trail with you, because I follow you closely on social media. You did a lot of work this season. You worked hard. You went everywhere. You went to small towns, little towns, every corner of the state and every point in between. When you're on the campaign trail, you get a chance to see Mississippi, don't you?
I do. And our culture and our people, if you just ask them, and my standard question is, how are you doing? How can I help? And they will tell you. And they'll also tell you if you're not doing good, and they'll tell you that too. But I think some people don't like a campaign. I always have, for the very reasons you're talking about, and I can give you two examples of these. One's pretty personal, but the first one, I met with about 6 teachers in South Pontotoc School, and they were elementary teachers, and I was asking them, how's it going, what is going on? We have real problems, they told me. We have these 6 and 7 and 8-year-old children that are acting out, and they're aggressive, and they're physically coming at me as a teacher. I'm not qualified to deal with mental health for young people. Now that stuck with me, and we'll be doing things for mental health for young people this year. So I picked that up out of South Pontotoc, out of meeting with teachers, and I think I've been in about every hospital in Mississippi and most of the schools at this point. And that stuck with me. The things I pick up out on the trail, this is something we need to go deal with. And as I replicated that with other teachers, I learned that. Then the other day, I was at the Rural Hospital Association. They gave me the Rural Legislature of the Year, although I'm not really in the legislature. I'm just a lieutenant governor. But in any event, I was shaking hands with these kids coming in, Ricky, and one little girl was standing out, not little, I mean, she's older, and she's in the rural scholarship program that we provide in Mississippi for nurses and doctors. She's studying to be a doctor, and she's in this program, and she will stay in Mississippi at least 5 years. And she said, I said, how are you doing? Fine. She's from North Mississippi. Her dad, Jay Allen, is actually head of a community college there. And she said, I don't think you remember me. And I said, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't. You know, she's 20-something years old, I guess. And she said, you came to visit me in Blair Batson when I was really sick. Now, I go to Blair Batson. The day I was sworn in the first time, I spent the morning at Blair Batson. You need to stay grounded. And I go every Valentine's Day, and I go a lot of other times. And it keeps you grounded in what other people are really struggling about when you're worried about whatever. Go there.
Hey, remind people who don't know what that is, what it is.
Blair Batson is a children's hospital that treats kids with cancer and all kinds of other severe injuries that come in to the hospital. A lot of cancer patients there. So she said, I don't think you remember me from Blair Batson. She said, you were so nice. You sat at my bed and talked to me. And I said, well, no, ma'am, I don't remember you now. She said, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm in the rural scholarship program that we devised up here to help doctors. And to me, that was the full circle, Ricky, of someone who's sick and in real trouble. She said, they fixed me. I didn't ask what her problem was. They fixed me. And here's full circle, somebody that came to Blair Batson, this children's hospital, probably with a cancer or some other significant diagnosis. Now she's grown up and she's going back to rural Mississippi to provide health care. And I just thought that was, so neat, such symmetry, and it makes you think that your job's worth it.
I think that
everywhere I go, I pick up stuff. On the coast, I picked up a lot of stuff this year. Y'all are struggling. As you know, we've sued the Corps engineers about flooding the oysters. Just everywhere you go, you learn what people's problems are in that particular area, and that gives me a chance to address them legislatively when I get back here.
Hey, listen, when I was publisher, if I had to say the thing that I enjoyed most about what I did as a publisher, no matter where I was and no matter where I was in my career as it related to the media side, it's the opportunity to connect with the local community, because Roland Weeks used to always say, and this thing is also true. This is the same thing is true for someone in your position, that a publisher wears three hats. You have fiduciary responsibilities. You have a company to manage. You have your community leader. You have to be willing to give back to the community and listen to the community. It's not just about helping fill gaps in the community. It's about listening. The more you listen and develop relationships, the more in touch you are. And then, of course, you have the First Amendment obligation that a publisher has as head of a newspaper. But he said that the point is, those hats are going to be at times conflicting with one another, and the good leaders kind of deal with that. You learn to live with those conflicts. But at the end of the day, being engaged and going out and listening to people is going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better leader. It's going to make you a better CEO of a company. And that's true with what you do. I mean, the more you listen, the more you engage people. I said on my outdoor show a couple of weeks ago that people who don't get hunting, they don't understand that it's not about the actual pursuing the specific animal. It's the year-round activities. It's about being with family. It's about laughing. It's about storytelling. And it's about, and this is really true for someone like me who drives to the Delta, it's about understanding how the landscapes of Mississippi define us. And you see that when you're on the campaign trail too, don't you? I mean, the landscapes define us, don't they?
I do, and I'm going to see it Friday morning because duck season starts, and I plan to be in the Delta duck hunting.
And you'll be laughing uncontrollably and telling stories.
Great times. We got great people, as you know, and they're all different types and whatnot, and we're unified by being outdoors and hunting. But you're right. Those camaraderies and the guy that took a wrong turn and put his four-wheeler in the ditch and water, and, you laugh about that for years. And so it's a good, healthy exercise, but when you wake up in the morning and you're watching the world wake up and the birds are flying and the deer are moving and the raccoons are doing and all like that, you just get closer to God. It's just, it's an experience. And you're right. It's not just like hunting or something. You hope you're successful, but the experience of being in the outdoor really reinforces your batteries, I think.
So last weekend I had it was opening weekend, and I hunted down in the bottom. My son suggested I go to a certain area because we didn't have a lot of water. The drought had dried up a lot of the bottoms, and before the big rains came this week, he said, you got to go down there. That might be a pinch point. And so sure enough, here comes this beautiful old swamp donkey buck. And so I had success, and then I waited almost an hour and a half for my grandson to get out of the stand with his father so he could go with me to find this deer. And I can't tell you what that's like to be in the woods with my grandson and his reaction to it, and this lifelong memory that we're making together. People who don't get a chance to see that, they don't appreciate the life lessons that we're teaching our young people. It's just amazing to be able to do that, isn't it?
It is, and I have some of ours come up to the farm when I plant the food plots and pick up the food and put them in the spreader and ride on the tractor, and so that they know you just don't show up and hunt. I mean, somebody planted all that stuff and worked hard at it when it was hot as it blazes. So I think there's a whole part of this. You're right. It's not just this part. It's the fact that you prepare for this and you find out what the best things for deer is and how much you should flood a duck hole and that kind of stuff. So it's part of a life experience. It's part of the culture of Mississippi, which I think really glues us all together, no matter what.
Well, that's why weekly, and I do mean this. You and I have talked about this before, but we ought to have this on a card tag somewhere. But I proclaim every single week on the Outdoor Show that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America, because when you look at turkey hunting and duck hunting, the Mississippi Delta, and the incredible pursuit of whitetail deer, and you name it, whatever it is, the coast, and what we have access to here in backwater and offshore fishing. When you add it all together, it's, as you've heard me mention many times before, we've got a lot to be proud of in this state. And when you take that in, and you take in that 51% of the people in this state live in rural areas, and they choose to live there. And a lot of places in America, they can't wait to get out of the rural areas. But in Mississippi, people want to live there. There's a reason why. And we get to see it after the tornado that hit the lower Delta, where it doesn't matter what color you are or what kind of politics you have, people come together. After Katrina, we saw that same thing. The resiliency, what is in the heart and soul of Mississippians, is something to be thankful for, isn't it?
It is, and you're right about that. There's still ongoing efforts in rolling forward, but I think one of the things that's really helped us is the fact that we started broadband early. You would appreciate this, maybe others. And some of my co-ops are built out, down to the gravel road. And so people can now work outside of a town like New Orleans, for example. They can work, and they can be in Waveland or Washington, and it really doesn't matter because they've got the same access. So I'm thinking that we're going to see a further increase in our rural population that are outside the city.
No, I definitely agree, and I've said it many times on the show that the broadband access progress that Mississippi has made is revolutionary. Probably no single thing we can do that's going to create more opportunities for people in poor areas and rural areas to be able to emerge. Their creativity and their intelligence is going to be a hell of a story in a few years. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. I have my friend, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann, and we just spent the entire segment talking about this really special state that we're fortunate to live in. And the last point that Delbert Hosemann made just before we went to break was about this effort to get power co-ops engaged in broadband access. And one of the things I noticed right after that bill was passed is the amount of cable that was laid in areas of the Mississippi Delta that would have never seen fiber optic cable. It was truly remarkable. I've never seen so much. How many miles and miles of cable was laid across this state?
I know what the number was. We put up our arrangement with the co-ops when we started this 3 years ago was we'll put up $75 million if you'll match it and start with $150 million. So they agreed to do that. Most of the co-ops did. 3 or 4 of them did, and I think we got about 12, 15 of them in the state. 3 or 4 did not. The others started to match. But once they started, the last number I got, they were right at $1 billion. So they took the $75 million match and put up another $900 million and went forward. Sally has got this, Sally Doty, who's head of the Broadband Commission here, will be releasing here in the next week where about another $1 billion is going to be spent in Mississippi around all of these different underserved areas. Particularly Southwest Mississippi and some others that didn't buy into the first time that we did the broadband. But that's coming, and I think that's the electricity of the 20s. Without that, you're not going to have anybody stay. So I'm real pleased with that, and my co-ops have just been awesome. It's unbelievable. They've devoted.
They really embraced it. I look at Coast Electric here on the coast. I look at Singing River Electric, and then for my place up in the Delta, it's Delta Power. But they have really embraced this. And again, you've got broadband access to places in Mississippi that would have never had it. Again, over 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas. So how would we have ever afforded afford to lay that amount of cable to create access for people in areas that would have never. How would we have ever done it if we wouldn't have had this? To engage a partner like the power co-ops. This has been a great success story.
It has, and each one of those, as you know, is independent, and so their boards of directors had to meet and decide to advance that kind of capital. We kind of primed the pump, but they put most of the money up here, and I think, with the exception of 2 or 3 of them, they all realize that if you don't get on this train, it's leaving the station, and you're never going to catch up, because everybody who's going to make any decisions on where to put a company, how good the farm is, pricing, all those kind of things are going to follow this broadband. So I was real pleased with that, and the last of those are coming around now. So hopefully in Mississippi we'll have significant broadband coverage.
And whether we're talking about working remotely, which we learned a lot about during the pandemic, whether it's about educational opportunities, once you get a home connected that maybe otherwise couldn't afford to get connected, then you're literally opening the minds in that house up to the world, and really then the sky's the limit, isn't it?
It is. I view that as a supplement to having kids in front of teachers. That's one of the things I did too during the COVID. I sat in the classes with these kids from Starkville to wherever. I would go to the class just like whatever they were teaching, and sit in and watch those children and watch what they were doing and were they paying attention. And it's not the same for classes. Now where broadband is an expansion, no pun intended, is the fact that it allows you to go look at other things you may not be learning about, algebra or whatever it is you're learning about. It gives you that expansion to look at other things like artificial intelligence, or what are people doing in Europe, or how's the war going in Ukraine. Those kinds of things that broaden people and bring them intellectual capacity. Those kind of things really are better. We have a program that I initiated that restricted your access for state employees, Ricky, to work remotely, and we have about less than 10% are allowed to work remotely, and those are on certain days and whatnot. I felt like even in today's world, you ought to be in the office 3 or 4 days out of the week, because otherwise you can't, you've managed a whole bunch of people. That synergy, those discussions, that opportunity to visit, how somebody face may be, or their body language may be, those are important things in making decisions. And I think most of our people in the state government, which is about 23,000, are working full-time in their office.
Yeah, I think we're seeing companies that thought they were going to be committed to a detached workforce from this point forward. After their learnings, they realized very quickly that you pointed out the synergy, certainly the collaboration, the opportunity to solve problems together. So even companies that might have wanted to go to complete detached workforce ended up changing that decision and going to back at least to some quasi approach, where some time of the week is spent in the office, the rest of the time out. But then of those who are spent the time out, there's a lot more productivity measures in place today. I give you an example. One person that I know, and I won't name this person, they are actually working 2 full-time jobs, literally 2 full-time jobs. Now, how do you do that? At my company, we would have never allowed that. We make people sign a form that says that you will be dedicated to this company if you're a full-time employee. But some people have actually pulled that off. I don't know how they pull it off, but they somehow have pulled that off. That's not a good way to build a strong company. Have your minds spread out like that.
Listen, work 16 hours a day.
Yeah, you saw in the governor's race, the healthcare became a very significant issue. It's something you're deeply concerned about. Hospitals closing, hospitals threatened. Gary Marchand, actually, who used to run Memorial here in Gulfport, is now leading the hospital in Greenwood, and that's the hospital I would take my family to if we had a super emergency, because of the farms I lease are in that general area. But man, I'm worried about where we are. I know that what the governor did has helped some, but the reality is we need to kind of re-engineer the healthcare system in Mississippi, and we need more funding as well. So how do we take this forward?
Well, we 2 things. We had our hearings on pharmaceutical, which is a very large expense, which we are not getting our dollars worth out of for a lot of reasons I won't go into, but We had that yesterday. First 2 weeks in January, after everybody gets sworn in, we will be having hearings on hospitals, nursing shortages, mental health, child protective services, and pharmaceutical products. The whole gamut of the delivery of healthcare. And I met last week the Delta Council, as you know, and for those people who don't, are an aggregation of a number of people in the Mississippi Delta that try to do better things for the Delta, healthcare being one of them. They're historically have been pricing for cotton and that kind of thing. So, but they're a big political and business league and very knowledgeable people up there. They had a lawyer come down that I met with just last week and talk about how are we going to fix the delivery of healthcare in the Mississippi Delta. And his recommendation was like a regional grouping of those hospitals to where you were sharing radiologists and you were sharing an internal medicine and you were sharing oncologists or whatever the sharing would be, instead of trying to have each hospital have a full service. And as you know, in Greenwood, and I've spoke with Gary many times, went to their hospital and spent the day there, walking the hospital and looking at their financial records. As you know, they're losing about $1 million cash and probably $1.5 million a month if you take depreciation and other matters. So our goal there is to look at the scope of delivery. What do we need in that hospital, from mental health to OBGYN, and then scope the size of it, just like you would in your newspaper or anywhere else, and then determine where it needs to be. And our kind of overreaching goal is not to have anybody further than 30 minutes away from one of these. Now, with that concept, you'll see it coagulate here. That's probably not a good word, but coagulate here during the first 2 weeks in January. Where that goes, I don't know. You're right. There's going to be additional funding. The governor adopted a plan that would result in about $695 million going to hospitals, but that's not the only issue we've got. Pharmaceuticals are a major part of that. But we don't have enough nurses. We're 3,000 nurses short. There's a lot of moving parts, but I think we'll come up with a state plan. Now, I've met with every major hospital in Mississippi on multiple occasions about this issue. But in addition to that, we're meeting with doctors and nurses and pharmacists and all the rest of the healthcare delivery system. I expect you'll see a plan come out sometime about the third week in January.
I think it's going to help to have, if Jason White is in fact a new speaker, it's going to help to have a speaker from a rural area. I'm sure that he's getting an earful. But, I think what you're describing is the approach that I think we have to take. And that is that you can't look at any single hospital in a vacuum. You have to look at the system. And when we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I'll get your views about, where's the state headed? I just want to get your overarching thoughts about where the state is headed. We'll continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor from Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann, after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show for the final segment. And again, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you've enjoyed a conversation that's been a little bit about policy, but not too much about that, more about the love of the state. The conversation specifically around healthcare is one that we should be having every day. We should not take a day off around discussion around healthcare, because every day we wait not to solve these problems. I mean, it really is a matter of life and death. I mean, it really is. And we've got to solve it. What I like, again, about the answer you gave a few minutes ago, and let me just be real specific, and that is that if we don't take a holistic view toward all of the angles related to healthcare in this state, then we're not going to ultimately solve the problem. What's required is a reengineering. I think about it this way, that it's almost like a hurricane, just like hurricane hit coastal Mississippi, and we had to have an all-hands-hit-the-deck moment to get coastal Mississippi back. A hurricane has hit the healthcare sector in the state, and we've got to take a similar approach. You can't go at it from one angle or this angle or that angle. You got to go at it. You got to take the full bite. Now, the issue is, where do we need healthcare facilities and where do we not need them? What's the relationship between the rural healthcare systems and maybe trauma centers? But this integrated approach is really required. And then it gets into, what's the insurance issues and what's the Medicaid issues, and if we go and just have a debate about one single thing, it gets too politicized. Let's look at what all of the challenges are, from financial to caregiving, et cetera. And then we can go and have sort of a bipartisan discussion around what's the solution look like. That's what you guys are doing, isn't it?
It is, and I anticipate, you're exactly right, by the way, not to compliment you too much, but you're dead on. Last year, we passed a bill that allows for all the rural hospitals to merge together. It used to be an antitrust issue, Ricky, but now we have absolved that for all of our hospitals, and they're starting that. Like Mendenhall, McGee, Covington County, and Laurel have formed this consortium to deliver healthcare services. So you'll see, I think, the rest of Mississippi do that, and we are headed towards a regionalization plan for the various states, and then the hub being these major hospitals like Memorial that would be the ones that would service the more difficult issues in healthcare. And you're right also, it doesn't do me any good to give a bunch of money to hospitals when they have vacant floors because they don't have any nurses. So you're right, the whole thing has to work, and it doesn't work if you can't afford your medicine. If your pharmacy costs too much, then you end up getting sick again. So all of this has to be done in one grouping, and it is very difficult because the government sets the reimbursement. So I'm only working, no matter what else I do, I'm only going to get paid X. So we really have to be innovative about that, and particularly on cost cutting and delivery of services and regional concepts and the things that you're talking about. Rural health programs, we've got rural nurses, rural doctor programs. We're producing, I think, 75 in that area, doctors. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but it is not something, the healthcare system is not something to press one button. There is no one button.
It's an all hands hit the deck moment for our state, and I hope as the legislature convenes we see it that way, because it really is a matter of life and death. It really is. Let's shift gears in the final couple of minutes that we have left. Okay. You know, the future of our state's bright if we continue to focus on the things that are going to really move the needle, like education. You and I talked about economic development continues to be a big discussion in our state. I like the fact that the Delta Council is focused on the Delta, and so because a lot of people believe, you know, we're only going to be as strong as our weakest counties. We've got to be focused on the Delta and overcoming the issues there. But the future is bright. How do you see the future of our state?
Well, I do think it is bright. You see our unemployment rate's like 3.8%. I think you see our education system now growing to where we'll be competitive with other states and hopefully with the world. We're in competition with China, really. I mean, y'all are building submarine conning towers down there and nose cones, and the Chinese are building bigger submarines. So we're in competition with them. So there are those things, and there are problems here. A number of southern states, including Mississippi, have less than a 60% labor participation rate, Ricky. That means people between 16 and 65 are not working. Now, over 40% of those are in Mississippi. For example, our labor participation rate's probably about 54. And the national average is about, I think, 61 or 2. Those are systemic problems. We have to have everybody working. And if we had another 5% of our population working, some of them would have health care insurance. They would all have more money. They could buy a home. They can, you know, circulate money through the economy. They have a better life. They stay healthier. They raise their families. All those things happen if we have a good paying job, which is the education is the start of that. I'm hopeful what we do during the next 4 years will be the catalyst to raise the labor participation rate. We need to do better. We need to have more people working. Anybody who wants a job in Mississippi can get one, and there's no minimum wage anymore. I mean, I'm talking to people that are $18, $20, $25 an hour plus benefits and stuff. So those jobs are there. And that's where I think we concentrate on making sure our economic incentives are good, making sure our education is good, making sure our people have a good economic life and future in Mississippi.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend, and I can assure you that as we go forward over the next 4 years, you know, I'm gonna be part of the solution, talking about helping to kind of make people aware of what has to happen in order to kind of help move our state forward. The legislature plays such a key role in that. That, good Lord, so many important moves they can make that are innovative, like the role in education that can move our state forward. But listen, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Enjoy your time out in the outdoors. I know I'm going to. God bless you, my friend.
You too, and congratulations. We have a culture of opportunity, and it's going to be very well received in our state. We're going to do very well.
Yeah, good. That's wonderful. Have a great Thanksgiving, and
Thank you. It's good to see you, Ricky. Good luck on Friday.
You bet.